Today, we're delving into a significant shift in the sports landscape, a change that could redefine the way points are distributed among the drivers on the grid. This change, the first of its kind since 2010, has sparked a wave of optimism among the lower-tier teams. They are eager to embrace a rule that would reward drivers finishing below P10 for their consistency, a move that could dramatically alter the dynamics of the Constructors' Championship. But is this a step in the right direction? What does F1 need to do to implement this rule as early as 2025? It's no secret that Formula One is a game of dominance, with constructors vying for supremacy. But just because we have backmarkers on the grid, it doesn't mean they lack the drive to compete with the rest. Take Williams, for instance, who made a remarkable leap from P10 to P7 between 2022 and 2023, netting them an additional $30 million in prize money. However, with the team now in a slump, they're more likely to rely on a driver having a standout race, scoring the majority of the season's points. To prevent this and encourage focus on consistent finishes in lower point places, F1 teams are considering a project that could forever change the landscape below the top five teams. The proposal? Alter the points order and award 2 and 1 points for finishing P11 and P12, respectively. Under this new structure, the 8th place driver would score 5 points, the 9th place driver 4 points, and the 10th place driver would receive 3 points for their performance. This is a welcome change for teams outside the top 5. As it stands, we have a clear understanding of who the top 5 teams are on the grid and who will consistently finish from 1st to 10th, barring any unexpected retirements or crashes. However, this change could undermine the competition for P6, as the team with the most luck in this section could benefit from the retirement of high-profile teams. Even to finish P11 and P12, teams will need consistency and powerful upgrades weekend after weekend. The question that arises is whether this move would strengthen or weaken the sport, given that it's bending its own rules just because there are 5 teams that were unable to keep pace with the rest of the grid. Expecting a driver from Kick Sauber to compete with Red Bull or Ferrari is undoubtedly an overstatement. Even with the budget cap rules, the smaller teams lack the funds to invest in making their cars as competitive as the top dogs. One of the primary issues here is the technical staff. A seat in Alpine and Williams would be much less appealing for a top-notch engineer compared to a seat in Ferrari, Mercedes, or Red Bull. But that doesn't mean we should write off these backmarker teams and hope for a crash at the front so that we can see Haas or Racing Bull score 1 or 2 points and then praise them for the consistency they have for finishing 11th or 12th. It's worth noting that since 1990, there have been only 4 occasions when the point system has been tweaked. But now, with the show gaining its greatest popularity and so many races on the calendar, this point system is something that would be very much welcomed by the fans on the grid. It seems likely that this rule will take effect as early as 2025, primarily because there isn't a significant condition that needs to be met for this scenario to become a reality. According to the latest reports, if 5 teams vote positively for this change, it will be implemented in the sport. Given that there are already 5 teams who are consistently finishing around P11 and P12, Kick Sauber, Racing Bulls, Haas, Williams, and Alpine, it's safe to assume that this could be the new reality of the sport, unless the top dogs in F1 decide to block this move. Another critical question that needs to be answered is whether this will resolve the issue in the long term. Right now, we have 5 top teams that are almost uncatchable for the rest of the grid. But if a 6th team emerges as a constant finisher in the 11th and 12th place, will this trigger a cascade that would effectively force the sport to think about adding even more points on the table? This is a question that needs to be asked directly to the FIA and the FOM. Similar to Andretti's case, whenever something new is brought to the table, the FOM needs to give a proper verdict as to whether or not this change is adding value to the sport or is taking away some of it. While it's not impossible to say that the top teams on the grid would be lukewarm to this change of the point, there will definitely be situations in which they could benefit from it as well. For example, if a top driver faces issues with a car, like Piastri had with his McLaren, or Hamilton's terrifyingly poor qualifying session that left him back on the grid in P8, the lower bracket positions will give them a couple of more points as a reward for what is already a disastrous weekend. This, however, is a double-edged sword. While you have a system that rewards drivers who are consistently hanging around the point, you're effectively weakening the sport by allowing them points for not being able to up their game and fight a bit better by attracting bigger sponsors, opening up their budget, and spending rationally in the new era. The future of F1 is indeed at a crossroads, and it will be fascinating to see how these changes unfold. The topic at hand, a potential shift in the point system that could revolutionize the way we view the sport. Fred Vasseur, the team principal of Ferrari, who was a team principal of a backmarker team, Alfa Romeo, currently known as Kick Sauber, has openly expressed his support for this change. Kick Sauber is one of the three teams that has yet to score points in 2024, and Vasseur's stance is clear. "I'm not against this proposal," he says. "Coming from Alfa Romeo, I perfectly understand the frustration that comes with having a mega weekend. But if there is no DNF in front of you, then you finish P11 and the reward is zero. At the moment, you can finish P11 or P20, and it's the same, so I can understand the frustration." Christian Horner, on the other hand, has taken a different approach, dividing the grid into two groups. The first group consists of the constant point finishers from P1 to P10, which are the top 5 teams. The second group ranges from P6 to P10. Horner believes that the battles between the teams in these groups are equally hard, and adding this new point system is a challenge that the sport needs to answer. He questions whether it would bring any more value to racing. Interestingly, the sport was considering adding an 11th team to the grid due to uncertainty about whether Andretti could be competitive after all the investments he made. However, lowering the standard for the backmarker teams seems somewhat contradictory to where F1 currently stands with its own standards. Lauren Mecki, the team principal of Racing Bulls, a team he supposedly launched in the top 5 before the season started, but is now one of the outlets that would be the happiest if this change is accepted, believes the decision is a no-brainer for the sport. He argues that there are no backmarkers anymore, with 6 OEMs in Formula One plus Red Bull Racing, making it seem like there are 7 top teams. Even the bottom 5 teams are large organizations now, and it's very difficult to explain to the outside world, to their partners, and to their fans that they battle for a P11 that actually grants 0 points. Mecki further adds, "If you look at the level of competitiveness of the top 5 teams and the reliability level of the cars, it means that most of the race you're battling theoretically for 0 point. And we don't think this is right. We also think it's more meritocratic because if you score points up until P12, you will avoid the effect where if something completely stunning happens and somebody scores a P5 or P4 in the rain, it means the other guys can stay home for 10 races." While this is a compelling argument, it does seem a bit unfair to lower the point system. A simple P4 or P5 finish from a bottom place team could be more than 90% of the total points that the team would have scored for that season. This could mean that the rest of the grid can sit home and not even participate in the rest of the races. However, that is at the end of the day just an excuse for a poorly performing team. The primary focus needs to be on the development and improvement of what they already have in their garage. So should we expect some massive changes in the point system sooner rather than later? Do you think there should be a change in this system that's remained intact since 2010? Let us know in the comments down below. As always, stay tuned for more updates from the thrilling world of Formula One.